So without further ado, I would like to introduce our workshop facilitators, which are Aumavae and Fagasavili Misa. There you go. They are two wonderful cultural practitioners that take care of, or Tavini, a nonprofit organization located in South San Francisco called Samoan Solutions. Those of you who are from our area know very well what our population is like in um, San Francisco, and South San Francisco has always been a very highly concentrated area in which many Samoan families have always lived. I know that in both cities, there are close to a dozen different Samoan churches. So the area does serve as kind of a epicenter in the Bay Area, in which there's a lot of Samoan youth, and the culture is very much alive. For myself, Fa Samoa has a special place because my children's genealogy reaches back past Tahiti, past Rurutu, to Savai'i. I found their bloodline traced back all the way to Samoa. And so just learning and connecting with the culture is important for me to learn about a piece of who's a part of my kids, which is their ancestry. So I'm personally super grateful to learn what I can from EPI all these years. And I know how much Samoan Solutions does for the community. So we're just blessed to have you folks today. And take it away, guys. Thank you.
Hey everyone, so we want to thank you all for joining us today. This is actually our third year of being in collaboration with Skyline College to honor our Pacific Islander heritage during Pacific Islander Month. So we're so very thankful to be in this space. As mentioned, my co-facilitator today is Fagasavali Misa. She's also my older sister, if you didn't catch that in the beginning, which I was remiss to add and inform Ryan of. So yeah, Fanga is my older sister, and we are both two of the founders of the local nonprofit organization called Samoan Solutions. Basically, our mission here is to serve the Samoan Pacific Islander communities of the San Francisco Bay Area, so all 9 counties. We offer many programs that just have been solutions to issues that have come our way. So both Fanga and I and all of our members all have a 9 to 5. So we try to be really resourceful with our resources and especially with our time. So doing things like this is just very, it's an honor for us.
My only words are thank you so much to Ryan and all of the crew at Skyline College for inviting us back for PI Heritage Month celebration. We're really excited about this format in particular. It's just allowed us to participate and reach people where they are. I haven't had the pleasure of being present because usually I'm working, but this is the perfect time for me to be on here sharing with you, and I hope you guys have a good time today. Thank you.
So today, Fanga and I will be talking about poetry in our beautiful Samoa, and then also we're going to be covering songs, so pese in Samoa. Okay, so if I talk too fast, just try and get my attention in the chat, and I'll slow it down a bit. That happens a lot. So Samoa and poetry, how strange. So in the Samoan realm, or in the islands of Samoa, there's many, many different poets. And there's many different poetry styles also. And poetry has been something that in our practice that has evolved within our Samoan people. And Afanga and I were talking this morning about which one came first, Samoan poetry or Samoan song. So you can share in the chats. You can have a guess at it in the chat and let us know what you think. I'm actually not sure. I personally think that it is Samoan song that had come first. I'm sorry. I'm also trying to now manage the waiting room. So let me admit all. So how poetry has evolved in our Samoa. So basically, Samoans have been ever the entertainer. Um, so our beginnings with poetry, you see it sort of laced in tala or fangongo, which is our stories, bese, which is our songs, and then Fiafia or skits, which is sort of short skits that were meant for entertainment. When we first see poetry introduced into our Samoa, it was through expression and alignment with our surroundings. So a lot of the actions and things that were happening to us were being sort of metaphorically expressed through nature. So movement, admit all, movement and interactions sort of in alignment with like could be in contrast with the movement of the ocean. So things like that. And then in the early 90s, choral readings was really prevalent in, I'm sorry, I keep on having to do this, the waiting room admitting. So choral readings was really prevalent, and that's a form of poetry, and that really sort of picked up in the schools in Samoa. And so there were also competitions that were sort of happening and being facilitated all throughout Samoa. All throughout Samoa within school-age children. And so choral readings was a poem piece that was then read collectively for a whole classroom, for an entire classroom. After choral readings, we see now a lot of spoken word pieces that are done with through poetry. And again, in Samoa currently, there's been a lot of poetry slams and poetry work that's sort of facilitated through our students. And then also here, Samoans who are living in America have also really picking up and taken to spoken word poetry as well. In addition to that, there's been a huge, or not a huge, but just a large increase in community writing, so community and collective poetry that we've seen with our people. What poetry offered Samoa and the Samoan people, a lot of the writing and a lot of the stories and talks that happened prior to poetry being introduced or poetry being prevalent in the Samoan people was very collectively written. So if you look at the talk of chiefs and speeches that were happening, it was you were representing your village, you were representing your family. And so that was sort of the perspective that was happening. When we talk about songs and skits, it was meant to be uplifting and sort of a collective experience around love, things that people could relate to sort of generally. And what poetry offered Samoan people was a creative outlet for us to explore our individual voice. It also had an opportunity, gave us the opportunity to dive deeper into our identity. It also created opportunity for us to talk about taboo topics, things such as rape and incest and domestic violence, things like that. It also had the opportunity for us to speak on our own personal experiences, which was awesome. And activism, and then also things that were very passionate to us as far as expanding our Lumina'i or expanding our future. As I mentioned before earlier on, there are many, many Samoan poets all across the world, and I've just mentioned some here. So in the future, you're more than welcome to, and actually we encourage you to Google these poets and to take a look at their work and the different styles that they use. Again, like I said, there's a lot of metaphors that are used in Samoan poetry, and they cover many different topics. So some of them are, some of the Samoan poets that we have listed here, all of those with the asterisks behind them are all published poets. So there's, you may notice some that are here from the Bay: Albert Wendt, Andrew Vai, Christina Pelisasa, Dan Talapapa McMullen, Eti Saanga, whose work is also heavily discussed in academia. Faso Sano Malifa, Marina Alif Fosio, Molimau Fasu, Selina Tusitala March, Sia Figel, Seri Bradford, Taimano Gur, Teresa Siangotonu, Tusiata Avia, William Giles, and there's many, many more. These are just a few that you can screenshot or refer back to this recording later so that you can definitely take a look or closer look into their different work and their styles. Now I'm going to have a shameless plug using poetry to encourage all of you to be counted in the 2020 census. This specific piece was written by For the Cultures, so I'm going to go ahead and share it. We navigate the concrete ocean, surviving to stay afloat. Faith strengthens our will and our hearts we devote. Being counted in the census helps our families thrive. It's an essential task to ensure our legacies survive. Be counted today for your families tomorrow. Life is short, we have no time to borrow. Census data tells the stories of our community. Be counted in the census so our children have better opportunity. I can't see you, but snaps for that awesome poem, right? So this is also an example of how we're using poetry to sort of promote things that we would like to see, hopes for the future and legacy. So one of the poets that I just wanted to highlight a bit is Dan Tolopapa McMullen. He is a Samoan poet, an artist, writer, and editor, and many, many other things. Dan does a really great job at navigating and portraying his identity as a queer Pacifica person. And so you'll see that in some of the poems that he writes. It's just very raw and reflective of things that have happened in his life. And it allows the reader to identify with his experience. Sia Figel, she is an American contemporary Samoan novelist. She's a poet, a painter. She's also a community activist, specifically around health and wellness, and she's a screenwriter. Sia grew up amidst traditional Samoan singing and poetry, which heavily influenced her writing. And if you've ever read any of the books or poem pieces by Sia Figel, when she was sort of breaking out and first came out, a lot of her writing was looked at as sort of provocative. And she was very unapologetic about talking about taboo topics or really even just diving into central sides of relationships. And that wasn't something that was easily received by the Samoan people at the time. But now we're really, really just thankful for her work and for her being able to share her voice in the way that she did, because many of our Samoan people, especially young women growing up, really identified with her work. And the last poet that I wanted to highlight today is Teresa Siangotonu. She's a Samoan poet, educator, and community leader. She's an amazing spoken word poet. She speaks on a lot of her pieces sort of are very thought-provoking around identity, around activism, around human rights, and the way that she tells each of her pieces and shares each of her pieces really just captures it's very captivating. So it's hard to sit and hear Teresa share one of her pieces and not just be immediately drawn in to the piece that she's talking about. Also, her writings sort of give note to her genealogy and legacy when she speaks about her grandfather. Yeah, so I really encourage you to check out Teresa's work. And you can also find more about the artists that have websites. I've listed them here. And if you have any questions about how to find more of their work, I can definitely connect you afterwards. So you can just ask us in the chat. Let's see what's next. And I know we're not done, but I just want to get to this because I'm going to pass the hosting over to Fanga after. But if you want to connect with Samoan Solutions, you can do so through Facebook at Samoan Solutions. You can email us or hit us up through Instagram. And then a couple of other things that I just wanted to highlight is, especially because this comes from the San Francisco Bay Area, or you can get your hands on it, is the Matamai publications. This is the first Matamai publication, which is a collective of writings of students. It is totally filled with poems that are written by students, Pacific Islander students, all throughout the Vasa programs, which I think is multiple schools. And then there's also Matamai 2. See that? So you can get a hold of these 2 books through CCSF. I think also State has copies of these books as well. Where's my copy apps? Fanga, if you want a copy of these, you have to attend the Talanoa series at CCSF and say something on the mic. Then you get one. Hanaki, we both got one because we attended. Yeah, so you guys, if you have any, do you have any questions about the use of poetry sort of throughout Samoa? You can type it in the chat, or you can just ask us directly. You can unmute yourself and ask us directly. So before I pass it back to Fanga, I almost forgot that they do have an example of a collective piece that was started by Fiafia, and then different people all throughout the world just kind of added on to it. So this poem actually kicked off as a response to the earthquake and tsunami that hit in the Pacific, and the Tongan Island and the island of Samoa really were devastated by it. There were deaths and a lot of damage that was done to the island during that time. And so if my slow loading laptop would load, I would love for us to just kind of go through this poem and read each piece. We can popcorn around so that it just continues to go. Okay. So unmute yourself. I'll give you some time right now. Everyone can unmute themselves unless you have like really loud noise going on in the background. If you do, then don't unmute yourself until it's time for you to read, okay? So I'll read this. After the tsunami, poems from the Pacific. In an extraordinary reaction to the tsunami that struck Samoa and surrounding islands, a group of poets, artists, and Pacific Islanders have begun to weave a poem to express their sorrow, loss, and grief. The poem began after writer Sia Figel sent her reflections on the day's traumatic events to the BBC website. You can also Google that and you can read her reflection piece. Like many others living in American Samoa, Sia and her children fled to the mountains as the tsunami hit their island. She later shared her reflections to the BBC with family and friends. Some of those close to her responded by turning her words into poetry and adding verses of their own. The rest is the poem below, the work of a community affected by tragedy. Hey, listen, admit. Welcome, Chuy. So again, we're just gonna go through it. I'm gonna follow along and kind of just run it down. Whoever participates, just read the entire piece by that specific author, okay? The evening bells have just rung for evening prayer. Our prayer tonight is that of gratitude, that our family and neighbors are safe, but our hearts are with those families who cannot say the same, who will not sleep tonight without a son, a daughter, a mother, a father, an uncle, an aunt, a cousin, a grandmother, a grandfather. Their loss is our loss. Even the night birds feel it.
Even the night birds feel it. Your words swim the sky, and through red feather clouds and blood tears, I know that we are connected, even in our disconnectedness of space.
Of space, the whole of Samoa is on its knees. Samoa in Oratora, Samoa in Fiji, Samoa in America, Samoa in Hawaii. praying and swallowing salt tears, swallowing time, shoes and soles of feet, swallowing bones and lives and sheet, memories of the day before Wednesday, swallowing distance and space, swallowing our sea memories, to taste this pain that is ours.
To taste this pain that is ours, to remember one's heart is there. On that day in September, at the earliest hour, they watched the sea disappear. The bay empty like a valley, the sea rushed back in a moan, took the weaver from her fale, took the child from warm arms, took the elder from his family, took the sleeper from her sleep. The blue, deep, deep moana, there at the sacred heart of us, that echoes through each of us, when the panic madness falls and the calm tide breeze, with all Samoa everywhere, with all of Tonga too. Remember my heart's there, and my heart too.
Along with yours. We are reminded in the most brutal way that we are all connected. We are reminded in the most brutal way that our relationship with the ocean is never on our own terms. We are reminded in the most brutal way why dominion over nature was never a part of our epistemology. We are reminded in the most brutal way, we are reminded in the most brutal way why we know ourselves to be simply a part of a sacred continuum of sacred relationships, where even the ocean is alive, where even the night birds feel, where even the rocks have spirit, where even the blood red clouds know why they are red. We are reminded in the most brutal way the balance of life between the sacred, Vatapuia, endless, interconnected across distance, space, time, species, life, death. We are reminded in the most brutal way why long before Christ arrived on these shores, we have always been a people of spirit.
A people of faith, a people of faith. Whaavai i le atua Samoa, they said, God will protect us, they said. Samoa is founded on God, O children of the great and mighty Fofua Iwao Ese, those of us who watch and listen from the great watery expanse of all the corners of the earth, hear Samoa's cry. Fofua Iwao Ese will not desert you, Samoa, for even now the groundswell of love, support, and prayers. Wave after wave will crash on the very same tear-filled shores which tore our worlds asunder that fateful day, and will overcome, embrace, and lift up our people, our ainga, our villages, our Samoa, from despair and devastation. Do not grieve, Samoa. Oto, mato, tato. With one hand, we will hold on to the ancient words and wisdom of our ancestors, and with the other, we will grasp the almighty power of Leatua. As we, people of faith, calmly but surely do what we have to do. Do what we have to do to remain people of faith. We are people of the Wao Ese. We are here watching, listening, and waiting.
We are here watching, listening, and waiting for the sun to lick our wounds dry, waiting for the breeze to untie the knot in memory left swept in by moana. Away our fathers cry, away our mothers cry, away our children cry, away we all cry. We cry salted tears, we cry silent fear, we cry mournful alofa for our people. We cry away, we cry.
We cry away, we cry, the strongest of the strong cry, through the push and pull of the tides and waves of pain and agony that crash against the shore of our wounded hearts. We cry, away, we cry tears of blood that flow deep through the sea of sorrow, flow with the whispers of our soft prayers ascending above the clouds and settle beyond the depths of our soul. It is there that our tears have dried into a grain of salt called faith. The one thing we continue to hold on to, for faith isn't faith until it is all that we have left to hold on to. It is what will wipe the tears of the strongest cry, give us comfort in the night, Allow the warm rays of the sun to brush upon our skin. Push and pull the greatest memories of love with that of the tides. Heal the waves of wounded hearts, lost in the sea of sorrow. Dry our tears and carry us into tomorrow.
Oops. That was Christina Belisasa. And carry us into tomorrow, carry us into tomorrow, carry us until we regain our balance, until there are no more tears to cry. The driest of eyes keep weary watch, but there's no blood in the ocean tonight. Just the same steady colors seeping into the sky, blurred horizons proffer few answers. There's a missing deeper than Moana, a grieving hope that knows no end, for Moana won't explain yesterday, leaving us suspended in the now. The now calm and perfect seas do not answer me. When I ask, why have you taken my loved ones to never return? You, earth beneath the oceans, do not answer me. When I ask why you sneezed and caused the sea to tremble and release her power on my helpless people, did you, sky, issue a warning in your many colors? And I did not know. Did you birds try to tell me in your cries and flying patterns and I could not read it? Did you, waves and trees, try to tell me that the earth was about to move and I could not hear nor see your message? Awe, awe, awe. So there's about 10 more pieces to this poem, which I'm going to actually share the link in the chat, just because Fanga still has to share her part of it as well. Thank you to everyone who joined in and bravely unmuted yourself to read the collective poem. Thank you. But this was just I thought it was just a great opportunity to highlight how poetry really helped our people mourn the loss and devastation of the earthquake and tsunami. And then also just how the internet helped lend a collective voice to our people, thankfully. So I am now going to turn it over to Fanga. While I do that, if anybody has any questions, you're more than welcome to share.
Okay, thank you, Epi, for that. It's been over a decade since that poem was written, and so I didn't remember it until you posted it. Before I start, because my presentation is probably gonna take maybe as long as Epi's, I just want to propose a bio break, like 2 minutes or a little bit longer than that. So if you have to take a bio break, go. If you don't, then stay put and hang out with Epi and chit chat with her, right, Eps? I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Well, that was unexpected. Thanks a lot, Fanga. But
hey, nature calls when
but we actually have one of our sisters from the Pacific Northwest online, Kiana Fuenga. So oh yeah, look at that. Because Fanga's calling people out. Oh, why can't I? Right? So Kiana is an amazing everything. So she is gonna hang out till maybe I'll just go set it by then. Kiana, do you have anything to share just on the topic of poetry? Kiana is also an amazing lyricist, poet, writer in general.
On a spot.
Right?
I think that there's I think the thing that I appreciate about poetry with Samoans is that our language is very poetic naturally, and so it's always been a fun thing for me and a very interesting thing for me to look at how our when we kind of go back into our own languages and the epistemology beneath them, meaning like the words, like how the words kind of describe the knowledge bases that we come from. And as an American born person, trying to figure out like how do you still own that as someone who lives here in the States. And I think that poetry provides a really amazing medium to still exercise our oral traditions and apply our knowledge bases in the kind of new world that we live in. So, yeah, I think one of the cool things that I love to look at is what like different proverbs from our different Pacific islands, because they kind of reveal a lot of our poetry. So like in Samoan, like how we have Alanga Upu Samoa, or like Samoan proverbs and how they're used in speech. If you break them down, they're very poetic, but they're used in like chiefly language. Like if you know the president was addressing, okay, the president Samoa or something, okay, not this president over here, it's not the same thing. But you know, like a high ranking person in Samoa was addressing, you know, other people. It's a beautiful thing to me that the natural tone of their conversation is just, it's kind of poetry in nature. So one of the things that I always think of, because I'm going to be doing a presentation on it next week, is the langopu that says, which means that the tolo bird flies all around, but it always returns back to the water. And it's an adage to how, as Samoan people, we may flee from the island or go other places, you know, navigate to other places. But we carry our identities and we carry our sense of purpose, community with us wherever we go. And therefore, the island never really leaves us. And I feel that a lot in poetry. I feel that in community work. So, yep, Fanga's back. Hey, what's up, bro?
You, bro, for adding on. You know, we got to make it do what it do, right? And yeah, just to add on to what Kiana was mentioning as far as Samoan proverbs, there are a lot of Samoan proverbs. A lot of them, again, are associated with the things around us, with the birds, the nature, the land, the ocean, and the way that they're used in our chiefly language, it is just very beautiful. And then there's a cadence to the way that they speak too when they're delivering these proverbs, and they're all used for a certain time, for a certain occasion. So yeah, I think that might have our proverbs may have been like the very first sort of evidence of poetry before we knew it's called poetry, right? You ready, Fawn?
Yes, I am. Okay, so just to build upon artistic expression in Samoa, I was asked to prepare a little something about songs of Samoa. And if you've ever seen our people perform, there's various different types of music and songs Samoa. So we're just gonna start like at the beginning with the basis of instruments. And before there were any like any formal instrumentation in Samoa, there was clapping. So you don't have to unmute yourself where you are, just be where you are, but I'll teach you the basics of Samoan clapping, because if we try to do this aloud on here, then it's gonna end up being what we like to call in Samoa salalau, which is like lag on the clapping. So you could just clap in your little square over there. All right, so the warm up to the clap, and actually the clapping and the rhythm, it comes from, if you think about it, it already starts within you with your heartbeat. So if you put your hand over your heart, you feel that you'll feel the rhythm that's already inside your body. And then we just bring that out as an extension through clapping. And so to warm up for your clapping, to put your hands together like this and rub them together. And you rub it and you rub it and you rub it until it's nice and hot. And then you give me a single clap, which is called bati. 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 All right, and then there's a different type of clapping. That's a lower tone clapping, and it's called po. Po looks like this. You cup your hands together like this, and po, 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 bati, bati. po 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 pati pati pat yeah pat yeah. All right, so that's how every Samoan rhythm starts out. Is that there's clapping and singing and stuff like that, but the basic timekeeping usually is for choral singing is clapping, and then on top of clapping, then you'll have drums, which our people are famous for using slit drums like the ones in the pictures. So there's these two big drums here in the photo, and those are called lali, and it's usually played together like two drummers in tandem, and one will start playing and then the other will play. They'll keep the rhythm and build it up. And then down in the picture below, we have a smaller slit drum. It's called a pake. And then also we have a rolled up mat that is made out of pandanus leaves and woven together, and you roll it up and it becomes an idiophone, which means that you can hit it with sticks and it'll make a sound like a drum, but it has a really distinctive sound, which is, it's not as hollow as a drum. It's more, I don't know, I'll play it for you in a moment and you can decide for yourself how to describe the tone. And then we also have some wind instruments that Samoan traditional musicians used to play. One comes from the ocean, it's the conch shell. And then there's also the panpipe, which looks like a bunch of different sizes of bamboo woven together and you blow on it. And then surprisingly, we used to play something called a nose flute. And maybe just like by show of hands, has anyone ever heard of Samoan nose flute before? Someone? Kiana, you really have? That's so cool. Yeah, I've never. But you know, I think it's just part of the evolution of our music and our musical history and our exposure to colonization and stuff like that. And then, you know, as we move through time, we also started to use string instruments like soundboard, which is like the part on your guitar that vibrates to make the sound. And then there's even a cielo, which in Samoan is actually, it's just the way that they say the word cello. And then eventually ukulele and guitar or kitara made its way to Samoa. And then 19th century, we started to get brass bands and then organs, pianos, and then nowadays it's every type of modern synthesizer that you can imagine. I guess Ryan was replying because he already knows what it sounds like.
There you go.
And how do you follow that up? You follow it up with a All right, so here we go. Let's talk about some singing styles. Samoan songs, you have these, sometimes you have in traditional music like drone-like singing or monophonic chanting, which is usually, it's like, can be in unison. And let's see, like what's an example? Like, there's like choral singing that maybe sometimes you might have one person start and then everyone will join in and you hear like to 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 fa ne 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 fa 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 ne 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 to. So that also can be part of call and response too.
There's some examples of traditional call and response, like if you've ever heard, oh, it's a fair, then the next group will reply, Lea fila wamu mumadalai tu. Let's see. There's a certain type of singing for Samoan people. It's called fasala. And it's like a nasal singing, and it's usually like there's various levels of harmony, and we use it a lot for welcome songs or entertainment. Some people, they call it like old people singing, because you might imagine that there is a group of old women and old men singing, but that's not necessarily the case. It's just the way that they're singing in a nasal tone. And I'll probably play an example of that for you guys later. And then throughout, when the colonists arrived, then there was more choral singing, that like formal style singing in church choirs and such things. And then nowadays, Samoan songs have morphed into all different types of genres, like jazz, rock and roll, pop, hip hop. If there's an Elvis song, we covered it. We have rappers and contemporary artists, and now we even have a Samoan cowboy who sings country music. So let's see. We're going to get a little bit deeper into what types of things are discussed or topics are songs written about. And the first that I want to talk about is like major events. So we call those events tayao. So there's tayao nai matangi pengai malata, tayao nai sawam samana. And then there's even a song called Le Tayao. And those are like major events in Samoan history, like the arrival and the spread of Christianity throughout our islands. And if anybody has any questions, you can just drop them in the chat, and then I'll get to you about those types of things. We also have songs that describe ceremonial practices and everyday activities. Like there's a song about the Aba ceremony, which is kava, for those of you who know what kava is. And it's a traditional song called Ia Lava Lava, which talks about Samoan lae, or clothing that we wear. And then we have music that articulates emotions, love songs, and then even just artistic expression in general. So let's see. Here's an example of an actual song that has been translated. And so on the left-hand side, you'll see one verse of a song. And then on the right is what it means in English. And when we sing these songs, usually it's just like about the rhythm, it's for dancing, it's for performing, but it's an actual story. So this is like an example of Ta'al, an event, Ta'al, when there was a major fire in Savai'i back in the day. I want to say 19th century, I could be wrong, could be 18th. But anyway, it's a traditional Samoan chant that's Aweta fefe la fi le mu mumai lalai tu. And it's describing the fear that's setting in amongst the people who are witnessing the fire that's burning. And we are fearful in the district of Ituotane and Savai'i. It is said to have been decimated. This is the appeal to the leaders of Samoa, not to be passive, but to pray for the situation at hand, and don't set yourself against us, meaning we need you to cooperate with us. So that's just one verse of that song. And then here's some Samoan songs, worship songs. I'm gonna play one, and the first one you will hear the sound that we call fasala, the type of singing, the style of singing that's nasal. And then in the second one, maybe you guys can just drop a note in the chat. What is the difference? Like they're both worship songs, but one is in an old style. Okay, and here's the second one. Okay, so that's the second more modern style of worship songs in our congregational style church. There's other types of worship that when people participate, but just to give you some contrast, old school choir versus new school. And then here's another example of songs that are written about everyday activities. And this one in particular is about the kava ceremony. And it's a popular song in that people, sing it for dance performances. And when you hear it, it goes like, Le aba silio na tawa ilanganu alu se usu le mangaya ka nati nati le toko ina ka awane sa si papano maya papatai umata mai tai le fola fola awa. So that's everyday activity type of song. And we're also known for writing anthems, or what we call VE. And there's one that's called VE Ole Tatal, which is a song that's written about our traditional Samoan tattoo. There's also VE that are written for villages. So when you take pride in a village that you belong to, or even in the island group that you belong to, say there's American Samoa and Independent Samoa, each has their own anthems. So there's anthems that are written by Samoans. And then here's an example of contemporary song that is known. It's out there nowadays, a young woman named Annie Grace. And this is the second verse, and it's more so like the language isn't as literal, it's a little more like metaphorical writing. She's talking about a house that's facing the sea and the back of the house against the rocks, stones that are that line the path to her future, and a voice that she can hear. And then in the orange text on the left is a little translation that someone had on the internet. Like, this is what, when they looked at the words, they thought this is what it meant, which is nothing like what you see on the far right in English. It's totally different. And the song is about the young woman's faith, Christian faith. And she's hearing the voice of the Holy Spirit, or it could be Jesus, but it doesn't have anything to do with what's being said in the orange text. Ryan, what is your question? You can go ahead and just ask it. You can unmute yourself and ask it aloud.
So my question is, obviously, you folks are very well versed in how the songs sound, and I can differentiate when I hear like Samoan music versus Tongan or another Pacific island. But I guess my question for Samoans that grew up continuously hearing music out of both regions, are you able to differentiate somehow music that has come from Western Samoa or independent Samoa versus music that has come out of American Samoa? Obviously, the anthems are completely different, But I mean, in terms of like compositions or things like that, say from like the villages, are you folks able to hear it and know right away it's from a different region?
I wouldn't ascribe the sound to particular regions. Just like when we have like village gatherings or any type of Samoan event that requires for people to come together and sing an original song that's written by someone. Usually you can tell by either the tune or the words in the song who the composer was. So then you would ascribe the song to a person versus a place. If you listen to the language that's being used in the songs, there are certain songs that pertain to islands that are just in independent Samoa, and then there's some that pertain to villages that are in American Samoa. But generally, it's up to the composer or the writer to make it distinct. I don't think it's that either island group has a style specific of its own.
Oh, that makes a lot of
Correct me if I'm wrong, Epi and Kiana, you can jump in there, or anyone else who knows anything about Samoan music. That's the best way that I can answer that question. It's a good question. Thanks for the question, Ryan.
Yeah, the main way to differentiate is the words that are used, um, and all of the sounds are pretty much universal as far as the beat and the strumming goes. You might be able to identify it by the words or by whoever is playing the music, as far as who's in the band. But other than that, it's not like immediately you stand out like, oh, this is from Western Samoa or this is from American Samoa.
I see. I see. And then my second question, I know it's kind of getting a little nerdy in linguistics, but I was wondering if any Samoans in here were, able to answer this. So I know that the main way you write the dialect is with the T sound and omits the K sound. But I often, we go to my wife's aunties, we go to the ward with them. And when I hear them speak to each other, I notice they use the K sound when they speak. Like they don't say tuinga, they say kuinga or things like that. And so I'm wondering why the K sound is spoken in conversation in Samoan, but it's never written or used in music. That always kind of boggled my mind as well.
I would answer that to say it's similar to like colloquial language in any language. Like, so you have Ebonics, and if you're going to write a song, you might not write it in Ebonics. You might use proper English. You know what I mean? So I think it's just the way that we document our songs versus the way that we might sing it, or like how you might have a country western accent, but the words when you read it in a document, it's proper English. You know what I mean? Um, yeah,
Yes,
the K and the T sounds it's more for in-person interactions versus formal writing.
got it. Okay. So K is
K is also considered a foreign letter, which is why it's at the end of the Samoan alphabet with he karo, because words that oftentimes start with K are adaptations like kompuka. So they most of the time they introduce foreign words, even though it's the only other function that I know K has is to be used interchangeably with the T, but it's not considered formal. You will hear K sometimes when I don't remember what it's called, but when guys are allowing like whatever villages have brought to a certain family or a malanga has brought to a family, you'll hear them use that. But it's not widely accepted as the formal version of Samoan language.
right, right. Yeah, I don't see it in the okay, so they're talking and using Ks, but then when it's time to sing the hymns, at the ward, none of the lyrics have a K. So I noticed that, and it's very interesting to me. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Ryan, for the question. So this is just another example of, you could call this a VE, because it's the author's writing it to show the pride that he or she has in our homeland of Samoa. And I think, nowadays it only takes like, what is it, two generations before our language is, if we haven't been using it, then it's going to disappear. So we have a lot of Samoans who are Samoan literate, but they don't necessarily understand what the song is about. So you could know songs, you could open your hymn book and sing a song, read a song out of it, but you don't necessarily know what it means. And so this is a really popular song, and I feel like whenever I have the opportunity to share what it means and the language that's in the song, it's a blessing to me, and I hope that it can be for anyone out there who's still practicing Samoan language and just getting a feel for our songs. And I really want to encourage you all, like, if you're wondering like what a song is about, like, there's some songs out there that it sounds cool, the beat is cool, there's a TikTok challenge to it, but maybe it would benefit you to find out what it means. Like on this next slide is just like some examples of Samoan artists, like more contemporary artists in various genres. And down in the left corner is a young man who's known as Samoan Cowboy, and his music is really well known among Samoan youth. But if you were to ask my 15-year-old and my 19-year-old what he's talking about, they don't know. They're just like, it's a country song, so he must either be in love or he must be sad. So then there's like some classics like Jerome Gray and his sons in the corner. Jerome used to be part of the Samoan band called Aumavae. He wrote the song We Are Samoa, People of the Sun. There's the Buya tribe, who's known for, as being breakout artists and some Samoan rappers in hip hop, and also with more contemporary hip hop artists like Drew Deasy. And then there's Sanel, who is island reggae, but also really R&B and soul. And then Aradna up in the corner, who's also R&B out of New Zealand. But these guys in the right corner, Tiama'a, they're some of my favorites. They usually just play strings, and a lot of their songs are love songs. And this song title that's in the photo here is also a song that was taken by the most recent generation of Samoans and turned into a challenge called the High Note Challenge, where the key changes for you sing the chorus, and then you change the key and you try to see who can sing higher, and then you tag the next person. So it's just like how our shows how our music, it's still out there, traditional music, but we're bringing our own flavor to contemporary music, and we're still trying to hold on to our roots, whether it's rhythm or whether it's rap lyrics or just the way a song sounds, that it sounds so catchy that you're like, let's make a TikTok challenge to it, or let's make a song challenge. And I'm sure some of you have heard that. If you just Google High Note Challenge and Samoans, you'll see this one. It just starts off like, o mai ole oti ilele fa'auta uta ulea lea tuana uma. And then Epi's gonna take it from here, and she's gonna go up one key, and then Kiana after that, and then Naki after that. But our youth, they really get down to that song. But do they know who sings it? Probably not. And do they know what it means? Probably not. But it's just, just an example of Samoan music and how, it's still out there, and you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, everywhere. So does anybody have any questions? I know I just killed our time and just went totally over, but
great job, Fanga.
Thank you.
Yeah, so if you look at like you know, if you remember some of the songs that, or some of the things that we write about in songs, as far as like events, or about villages, or about traditions that we have, it doesn't leave very many songs about things like domestic violence or rape or incest. And so poetry really allowed us a space outside of writing, you know, just writing in general, for our people to just talk about those things, and in a way that is a lot more forgiving than us trying to sing about it. Songs that Pese for Samoans is also one of the very easiest way for our children and people to pick up on the Samoan language. So if you are ever interested in learning, Samoan songs is a really good first place to start. And then you can use Google Translate or the many wonderful sources of the internet to translate your words and the lyrics of the songs into English, so you know what you're talking about, right? Yeah.
Or you can ask an elder, because you might end up with the words that were on that other slide that I had that just was a bunch of nonsense. And that's not what we're trying to find out about what the meaning.
True. Another distinction too, though, in with Samoan drumming, and maybe Ryan, you guys can touch on this too, is when I notice when I see Tahitian drumming, that it seems like there's many people playing a certain section of a beat, and then collectively that all of those different sounds that are being contributed create the entire beat, right? For Samoans, there's usually only one person that's playing the pake, and that person is in charge of making the entire beat themselves. So I just thought that was an interesting fact as far as our drumming goes. Um, the differences between Tahiti and Samoa.
Yeah, it's very much evolved. Like Tahitian drumming is much more similar to Cook Island style, where it's played as kind of like an orchestra, the different instruments playing, syncopating on one, say, beat or melody, but it's all played differently in one. Whereas I noticed with Samoan, the pake, it seems like if we're not talking about a sasa, you know, it seems like the pake is used and sometimes they sing with it. Is that if I'm not mistaken? And also, you know, all our studies that we've seen, most of the time, I don't know about, you know, everyday people giving credit all the time, but at least scholars do know that, you know, Tahiti was populated by Samoans and then the Tuitonga. So I think all the traditions that are in Tahiti and Cook Island are descended from the original Polynesian culture, which is from, you know, the Tui Manua, which is in Samoa, and then the Tuitonga. So um, I definitely see how it evolved, but totally appreciate both styles today. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah,
oh,
so I just put some links in the chat for anybody who's wanting to hear some of the older style of Samoan songs, and even that knows it's in there. But yeah, I want to just thank you guys for your time. I really appreciate it, and sorry about all the technical difficulties. It was just more like me wanting to share with you maybe some lesser known, less popular recordings of Samoan style music and instruments. So thank you, everyone.
we do have a question. Sorry, before you guys go, we got a question from Arturo, and he's asking if we teach cultural classes or just language classes. So we don't directly teach language classes, like just specifically language or specifically culture. What we do have is the Whangongo Samoa program right now, and that kind of it touches on everything. So it's a series of Samoan legends that is put into a production, and it has you have the opportunity to learn Samoan language, Samoan culture, learn about our stories, and then the songs that are associated with that. And then if you follow us on Instagram, we have on our highlight reels, we have Samoan sound bites, which is our Samoan language or Ngana Samoa initiative for you to be able to learn Samoan language, conversational Samoan language. There's about I'm not sure how many lessons that are on there, but there's quite a few lessons that are on there that can get you started if you're interested in the language. We've kind of put a pause on our workshop series because of COVID-19, but once it opens up, we'll make an announcement to share the information on how you can get connected if you guys want to just drop in and check out a class and see how it goes. And then once Whangongo Samoa comes on, we'd love for you guys to join us. Before we head out, if you guys want to message everyone who so graciously stayed on way past our time frame, 30 minutes of your life that you've decided to hang out still. We have some masks here. We also have some cool pop sockets and census gears and stickers that we would love to send to you. So if you can message us with your address or send it to Ryan, then we will get that stuff out to you by this week. Thank you for joining us today.
And on behalf of our office, the Center for Student Life and the Associated Students of Skyline College, we just wanted to thank you both for sharing your knowledge and your beautiful culture. We just are so grateful to give the opportunity, the space, and the time for our community to learning about Fasamoa, and especially important for Skyline College, in which Samoa is definitely has an important place in our cultural community. So I just wanted to thank you both again for making Pacific Islander Heritage a wonderful event. For everybody who's here, we would like to invite you back to the same Zoom meeting ID room, this exact room, tomorrow at 1 o'clock to 2 p.m. We have a punake from the Kingdom of Tonga, Koata Vainikolo, who will be lecturing about the history of the Tongan dances. And then for many of us in this room who, you know, a lot of you folks are familiar with Siva Samoa. As you know, the Tuitonga, instead of having Samoans taking over, you know, the Samoan Islands and having Samoans learn their dances, what they interestingly did was they decided to adopt the Samoan dances into the Tongan culture. So I'm excited to hear about that tomorrow and learn the history of that. It's interesting how the two cultures have a long history together. And I think it's good for our Polynesian and Pacific community to learn both histories. So I thank you all for being here. And happy Pacific Islander Heritage Month.
Happy Pacific Islander Heritage Month.